Hello, everyone. Thank you once again for joining me today. My name is John Kayode Abusi, and people call me John K. My job sits at the intersection of product security and software engineering. And today I want to start a new series called Software and Product Security Engineering and Architecture. Now, in this series, I want to, I am doing a lot of research. I am looking back to what I've done in the past 5 to 7 years of my life within software ecosystem. I've seen how I'm looking into how I help organizations, in this domain. And I'm bringing that knowledge, I'm bringing that learning, I'm bringing that expertise to bear in a series of videos. And I'm starting with this one. In this video, or maybe in this episode, I want to lay out this career path. I want to lay out what organizations are expecting and what they should be expecting. And I want to lay out what individuals that are working in this space or that are having this particular, job title should focus on. So that is what this video or this episode or this series will be all about. So the first thing I want to say is that I will move on to what exactly is product security. What does it mean? So, and one of the things I've done is to research across, standards, frameworks, and institutions that kind of powered, things that that contribute very much into what is coded as product security today. Now, according to OWASP, we all know OWASP, so we all know NIST, we all know SAFECode, OpenSSF. These are major organizations and institutions that have contributed a lot to secure software engineering, because at the core is secure software engineering. So product security is the discipline of building, shipping, operating, and maintaining secure software products throughout their life cycle. So in one word, what it means is that the responsibility or the management, the end-to-end management of building, and operating and maybe retiring digital products in a secure manner falls within the purview of product security. So now, at its core, product security engineering is the engineering discipline responsible for designing, building, deploying, and operating secure software system at scale. That is what product security is all about. So if you look at it very well, it's more or less like software engineering, but that focus on the security of it. Now, this is not just like, penetration testing, vulnerability scanning or compliance, because often we see organizations or maybe hiring manager or maybe someone that's responsible for filling in this position kind of wants to give it a fancy name like product security engineering, but at the same time, when you look at the job description, you find out that it's just like maybe an operator that have understanding of how to scan and how to do this. No, it goes beyond that. It goes into design. It goes into design thinking. It goes into product thinking. It goes into risk management. It goes into how to do what I call a paved road. It goes into cloud and Kubernetes workload. How does this thing ties together in a secure manner? It goes into secure SDLC. That is a full software development lifecycle. So these are the things that a modern and a true picture of what we call product security is all about. It's all about. So these are the information I want us to have at that. So the other thing I want to talk about is common real-world career tracks. When you find yourself in product security, environment, or let me say ecosystem or world, product security world, now you can pursue a real world career tracks like product security engineer. That is obvious. Under this same product security, people can become a DevSecOps engineer, detection engineer, cloud engineer, application security engineer. All these are variants of product security portfolio. So we have a security platform engineer, security architect, identity and access management engineer, security researchers, and the new AI security engineer. So these are the roles that you can pursue or you can function well if you if you are a successful product security person. Now, let me go into what I call important industry realities. Okay, so most mature product security organizations are, kind of conveying, towards four major mega domains. They are converging into like four major domains. Now, domain that one is secure software engineering, the other one is security operation engineering, cloud native, platform engineering. So everything you have, for simplicity's sake, you have under product security can kind of merge into this. When you find yourself working within the core engineering org, then your job will be of more of AppSec, SDLC, secure SDLC, and API security. If you find yourself working in the operational side, you find yourself doing more of the detection engineering, more of incident response, within engineering workflow, and more of telemetry. Then when you if you find yourself in a cloud, centric environment, then you begin to look at maybe your AWS workload, how securely it's configured. You talk about your infrastructure as code, that how the idea is to Terraform, your cloud formation, your tofu, or whatever that you're using, or your Plume, whatever it is. All these things have a way of there should be a way of making sure that they're securely configured and securely deployed. Then Kubernetes, then supply chain security is a very important thing. I think I will talk about it more in another slide. So when you find yourself in this, when you find yourself in this cloud native environment, then your job as a product security engineer or somebody doing engineering in product security, we kind of take a lot of a lot of this into account. Then security platform, engineering. This is more or less like you paved the road. Like I said, when you begin to harness multiple, like technology, methodology, toolings, and processes, bringing them together to build, a kind of scaffolding or maybe a product, maybe internal development tools, for security operations, as what have you, automations, tooling, like I said. So that is when you are moving. That if you find yourself in that kind of environment, yeah, that is what you are doing. So that these are the four, mega domains where your work can concentrate, So let's go to two-layer product security framework. So now, if you look at product security, it's always like there is a fundamental, there is a core layer where you have to be able to, take all of those things within that layer into account. That is like the barest minimum. Okay. I'm not saying it's simple. I'm not saying it's, no, I'm saying like it's fundamental, like the name says. It's something that needs to be considered, needs to be done. It's in every security workflow for product security, it must be there. Yeah. And in some career path too, it's like you have to get to know this. So in the layer 2, that is where you do specialization. And that is where you will see that in specialization, we have, okay, let me go back to the cores. You have application security. That's where you do your SaaS, DAS, SLC and stuff like that. Then secure SDLC. That is where you do your designs. You do your architecture, secure one, threat modeling. Yeah, that can fit into your architecture. That's where you have to threat modeling. You have to do security architecture. I said that cloud infrastructure security, DevSecOps, vulnerability management, detection monitoring. That is your detection monitoring. That is visibility. And the software supply chain, like I said, supply chain is when you have to assume the responsibility of a third-party package or libraries or solutions that brings the risk to your own ecosystem. So all these things, governance, risk, and compliance, GRC. There is a trend now that is called GRC engineering. That is when you automate your GRC and you kind of don't depend on kind of checking the boxes. So these are core layer 1. If you mature your system or mature your career or let me say you mature your team to a certain level, then you can begin to specialize. We have some organizations that in their product security team, they have somebody who is a specialist in maybe API security. They have somebody who is a specialist in maybe Kubernetes and cloud. They have somebody who is specialist in maybe detection and incident response. And they have somebody who is more like a automation guy who can write all the scripts, who can put all the tools together. So in product security team, you can start, like maybe generalist, and a time come that you begin to have people, in kind of having like specialization. So that is what I want to say there. And then top 10 security organizations and framework or standard that you need to know as a product security engineer. Now, these organizations, these frameworks, this standard, they are very, very important because the work they do contribute or kind of power product security as a whole. So these are places where we are getting knowledge, where we are getting standard, where we're getting toolings, processes, and maybe documentations that help us to engineer product security in a way that it should be done. And the first number one on the list is the Open Worldwide Application Security Project. It's a single most important organization for application security. So you see, application security is within product security, and the OWASP is a very important organization within this domain. For instance, a lot of us, we are very familiar with OWASP top 10, in web application, OWASP top 10 in API, in mobile, and in recent time in AI and LLM. So this top 10 is one of the things that guides product security when it comes to application security pipeline. What are those things we should be looking at for? What are those things that are very common? Security issues that are very common with web application, with API, with LLMs and stuff like that. So it helps us to kind of focus our effort in our application security efforts. And what do you learn on that OWASP project? You have the top 10 I've said. Then you have the ASVS, that is Application Security Verification Standard. We have the SAM. The SAM is a Software Assurance Maturity Model. Threat modeling, secure code reviews, generative AI security. OWASP has written a lot, provide a lot of documentation, guidelines, and frameworks as regard all these things. So you can learn a lot from there as an individual or as a team. Why it matters? Most AppSec program reference OWASP. Yes, directly. If you look at some job, they'll tell you, okay, this person must be familiar with OWASP top 10, must be familiar with OWASP tooling, must be familiar with some of their processes and stuff like that. So best practices to master. Secure coding by language. That shows that you must master maybe what are the secure coding practices that are applicable to maybe Java, to Go, or to Python. Web and API security, like I said, authentication sessions like your Auth2, your OpenID Connect. You must master those areas, and these are the things. Not just master it for maybe for the security guy. It's something that should get into your workflow. These are the things. It's kind of pointing to you what you need to focus on. When you build your pipelines and your workflow. So, and the conferences, the training that they offer, they have events, and they have some that are very close to you, like maybe some support groups or that maybe that may be going on in your own city. You can look it up in their website. So the next thing I want to talk about is NIST and SAFECode. We know that NIST is a National Institute of Standard, and the technology. It's a very common framework to every cybersecurity person, especially in the IT operation side. The NIST CSF 2.0 is very popular within cybersecurity, community. And we have another one. This is focused on secure software development framework. That is NIST SSDF. So now, for people that have a background in maybe IT security, they might just be familiar with NIST and with CSF or SP 800 series, which is risk management. But now you are familiar. I'm bringing this kind of like let people be aware that there is another NIST publication that kind of cater for secure software development framework. So these are the things that you can get by incorporating NIST into your career or into your product security team operations. So you learn a lot of how to deal with the risk, how to what to do when it comes to your secure software development lifecycle. And you can see critical skills there. Like I said, the supply chain security, governance, security control mappings. These are the things that you learn or you can benefit from NIST. Then we have SAFECode. SAFECode is a software assurance forum in code. Like software assurance forum in code. So it's an organization owned by that's maybe established by or backed by Microsoft, Adobe, and Intel, and I think SAP as well. So what this documentation or this organization is getting, or maybe let me say they do, that helps software security, is helping you to run a program like Security Champions program. Like security champion program is a program that most organizations do. Some organizations do this program in such a way that they have a security-minded person or security person that is embedded within maybe different engineering team, within the environment organization. It's kind of a cultural and structural thing within organization. So if you are running program like that, you tend to run program like that, you might want to look up the SAFECode, publications and their resources. Then secure engineering culture. If you want to bring something like secure engineering culture, software engineering culture into your organization, they have tools and documents that can help you, achieve that. So that is that. So developers focus security. Now, if you look at this organization, it's geared towards developers enablement. Yes, developers enablement. So if you want to run developers enablement, security in the security domain, this is a right place for you to look into. Safe code practices resemble how elite product security teams operate internally. That's it. So I'll go to OWASP, SAM, and BSIM. So what does that mean? Building security in maturity model, that is BSIMM, and SAM is a software assurance maturity model. Now, in the two of them, OWASP SAM, one of the best maturity framework for AppSec programs. So now, if you want to mature your AppSec programs, SAM is a maturity capability model program or organization, that this is where you can get resources, information, and tooling that can help you to move your AppSec security program from one level to the other. SAM teaches how to build scalable security programs instead of only finding vulnerability. So this is like a resource pool that helps you to consolidate and unify your effort, security effort in such a way that you can achieve measurable progress, maturing your processes and your workflow. Senior engineers become valuable when they can scale security, influence engineering, measure security, create developers workflow. Yes. So in product security, because it's a software engineering domain that ensure that we are actually shipping secure product. So that alone you have to be able to scale, because as the engineering team is scaling, the security too have to scale, because you can't drag them back, because product security is a domain that allows security to, allow development to move at the pace they want to move without necessarily, sacrificing, security. So you have to be able to influence engineering org. You have to be able to mature your security capabilities. You have to be able to, create or enable developers in a way that they will be able to innovate and scale their job. So when that is paramount, that is obvious in your team or in your career, one of the places you want to turn to is OWASP SAM. So you can look into that for governance, for designs, for implementation, strategies, for verification, and for operation that can help you achieve that. Then the build security in maturity model. This also allows you to mature, but at the end of the day, it helps you to organize your maturity. It helps you to be able to capture your metrics that can help you to show progress. It helps you to, assess your program and be able to say, okay, this is what we have done, this is what we can achieve, and this is where we can move to. This is the level we can move to. So governance as well. So you can achieve all these things, if you want all these things, or maybe these are the things that it's your next maturity model phase that you want to achieve. You want to turn to BSIM to get some support and some documents that can help you there. Now, move to Cloud Security Alliance and SANS Institute. So remember that what we are dealing with here is I'm trying to bring, to you framework, standards, and organizations that will support you, or that you can get support resources from as a product security engineer or product security team. So the 697 one here is the Cloud Security Alliance. So this is a kind of very critical for cloud workload. If your environment is cloud, then you want to even add it to your feed, where you get periodic information and update from CSA. They have a lot of very suitable materials in that environment, how you can secure your cloud workload, the best practices you can follow when you are running Kubernetes security. I know they have some standard container image, hardening toolings and some processes as well. So your identity and security management in the cloud, your zero trust architecture, all these things, they have resources that can help you maybe grow your team in that area or grow yourself as an individual. And the seventh one is SANS. SANS is I'm not like I said, I've not taken any courses in SANS, but I've had a lot of friends that do, and they speak highly of them. And when I was doing this research, one of the things that comes to my radar is the SANS Institute, training that borders, on cloud, web application, and the like. So there's another organization, and they do kind of, share some free tips and some free documentation as well that can help in area of that can help your product security team or your career. So now the eighth and the ninth one, this is MITRE and OpenSSF. Open Source Security Foundation, is OpenSSF. MITRE is a non-governmental organization. But let me start with MITRE. MITRE, we all know, a lot of us are familiar with MITRE ATT&CK, all this kind of that framework. And what does that framework help us to do? It's very important to product security engineering, as a career, or as a team, if you look into that. So MITRE ATT&CK is a creator of a common vulnerability, and exposure. Is a creator of common weakness and an enumerator, or enumeration, sorry. So they are the creator of that. And if you look at attack itself, it's yes, so they create all these things. And how do you, for me, common vulnerability and enumeration is one of the best for me. Like for every AppSec person or maybe product security person, when you get a vulnerability, maybe flag in your CSPM, maybe in your scans or whatever, the first place you want to go to is to look at it in CVE or CWE. You want to correspond, you want to learn more about it, you want to see, what actually is if how it has been fearing. I use the word fearing, like how has it been maybe used, or how has it been abused, or how people have maybe curtailed it and stuff. So you can have all this information. So then threat informed defense, these are the things that you learn. Detection engineering, MITRE, if your workload, if your if your environment kind of is into detection engineering, you want to look into MITRE. If you want to know common weakness, enumeration or vulnerabilities, you want to look into MITRE. So it's a very important organization. And then to OpenSSF, extremely important for modern software supply chain security. Like I said earlier, supply chain security is all about something that is not even native to your workload. It's something that you borrowed or you take from a third party to be part of your ecosystem, and they come with security risk. Most of the time, people, if you don't treat it in such a manner, you might find out that you can have some security vulnerabilities cropping into your environment from that particular source. So if you work in an environment whereby you constantly maybe use third-party toolings, or maybe you integrate with third-party applications, it's OpenSSF is a very wonderful place for you to learn about software bill of materials. Provenance is a kind of techniques that allow that where you sign, and it's a signing and verification mechanism for your digital products and stuff like dependency securities. Like I said, when you're depending on maybe third-party toolings or processes or libraries. So CI/CD hardness, your CI/CD pipeline, how do you harden it? For instance, how do you ensure that maybe your pipeline, you don't want it to be pulling container images directly from web without being vetted or without being properly cleaned up. So these are the things that you learn from Open Source Security Foundation. So that would be all for the first part of this video. This is of this video, and the second part will take us through other things we need to know as product security engineer or product security team. Once again, thank you.